Welcome to the latest edition of what is now called, almost stumbled over my words right out the gate, the first State Kopites podcast. For lots of reasons, we used to be called the LFC Delaware podcast, and that no longer is the name. So we're associated with the official supporters club of Delaware, but this is really an unofficial podcast from some of the members. Today, we're joined by Daz from Baltimore supporters club. Which is probably called something different as well now. So
OLSC Baltimore. It's a tough one.
OLSC Baltimore. I will not stumble over that. So welcome. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to essentially do a bit of a news review ahead of Liverpool play Chelsea on Sunday in the second Premier League game of the season. Before we get to those fun topics, got a couple of quick announcements. One is now that we've got our own logo, you really must subscribe to First State Kopites. I'm sure it's down beneath you if you're on the YouTube page. Please subscribe, and then you can get our future editions. Got some hopefully interesting guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. And then, Tim, you had a couple of announcements about membership and Roonies.
Right. So we're still taking memberships for the 2021 season. And you have incentive now more than ever to sign up if you haven't yet. Because this Sunday, when we watch our Mighty Reds take on Chelsea at Catherine Rooney's in Wilmington, at halftime we're going to be raffling off a $50 gift card to the Anfield shop to someone who is a paid member of OLSC Delaware. So you have just, 2 more days left. If you're not a member yet to sign up, you can email lfcdelaware@gmail.com if you want to get on. And I'm sure there'll be someone there to take your money on Sunday as well if you want to. Plenty outdoor seating, wear a mask, wash your hands, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And link it to your official membership as well if you have that. So if there are ever tickets to buy to matches again, we could get some maybe. Is that it?
I guess we'll get to that when Mbappe shows up, right? Hopefully.
Okay.
Talking of wild transfer rumors, let's get going. Well, so today is Thursday. What is it? September 17th, and the Thiago rumors turn out to have all been true. So for what would appear to be $5 million a season, Liverpool have signed who now clearly is the best midfield player in the world. He didn't start out that way this morning on my reading, but he's now kind of talking him up. So we'll start with you, Daz. What do you make? Thiago Alcantra, 29?
Never in doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of stayed away from adding any sense to otherwise to this, because I always got the sense that this was in the bag, or it was always going to happen. Even though like everyone was kind of squashing it, squelching it, whatever you want to use there, I had a strong sense that this was always going to get over the line. My one concern was that we'd have to lose Genie to kind of facilitate it. I know that he takes tons of stick on here, but for anyone that's watched any football or played any football at a high level, he reminds me a lot of like a Ronnie Whelan type character. He never quite got the kudos that he deserved, but he was always the glue that bound, the oil that kept the machine running. That's like, don't get me wrong, he has his occasional stinker. He's a human being, but I felt like he would. I still feel that he'll be instrumental to us having a great season. But Thiago is an absolute corker of a signing. For your guys' sake, and I never do this, I went on to Transfer Market to see what the buzz was about his injury record. And it primarily seems to be around his knees. I think 6 years ago, he spent almost a year on the injured list because of his MCL. He had some sort of partial muscle avulsion 2 years ago. But the rest of them seem to be like fairly routine injuries that you pick up in a football match. So it was I think it had an ankle ligament he partially tore. So, and I'm a guy and I think I said this on your last podcast actually. Like I'm a person that believes what I see. I'm not necessarily bigly into statistics, but what I saw of him, and we were fortunate enough to watch him in a few of the Champions League games, and he was lights out. Yeah. He was here, he was there, he was everywhere. He was super impressive in everything he did. He's great at breaking it up. He picks a good pass. he obviously has great vision. And I'm wondering if we won't see Klopp opting more for a 4-2-3-1 moving forward. I know that he's dabbled with it in the past, and when we switched to that formation in the match against Arsenal in that community charity milk, whatever shield it is now, we look way more impressive. And I think that having a 2 back there and allowing 3 more to do more water carrying in the midfield will definitely benefit us and benefit him. So I'm super excited to see him in red and see what he can do.
Well, there's a ton of stuff in there. A couple of things I'll pick up on, and I'll turn to Sean next, because I know he, like me, has a bit of an interest in some of the kind of stats that someone just shared, like literally moments before we came on. The pizza chart, if you know the one, which has got kind of all of the relevant measures, and Thiago's pizza looks completely coloured in. So his average is he just does everything and is good at everything. You know, interceptions, passes, tackles, closing down, all of those. He kind of, his rating is about as high as you can get.
It looks a lot like Naby Keita's.
It'd be interesting to compare them, right? Actually,
I have a comparison. I'll send it to you.
Oh, awesome! Wow. Well, let's go to you next, Charlie. Oh, that's
Oh, I don't want to cause dissension in the ranks. That's all right. Go to Sean next.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I like Daz. You know, I kind of had a feeling that it probably would happen this summer, but we'd probably have to lose Ginny for it to happen. But it seemed like Ginny wanted to leave, and now it maybe seems like he doesn't want to leave. Not sure what the situation is there, but I wasn't really excited about it until today. He's just an awesome player. He's an amazing player. You know, if I watched a couple of extended highlights of like our match against Bayern last spring at Anfield, and he's just amazing. He stands out. You know, if you're looking for him, you know what to look for. He's just an amazing player, and I can't wait to see him play in red, sending some of those counterattack through ball passes to Salah and Mane. You know, it's I think it's just a great signing, and you know, it'd be interesting to see how he kind of how we rotate in the midfield, I guess, and how we set up. But you know, I don't think there's any doubting his quality. So we're adding a great player, and I think he helps the team. But I'm also just excited to see him play because he's just a fun player to watch. So
yeah. So I guess we don't know when that will be yet, and I'm pretty sure he isn't going to be playing on Sunday, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I going back to something Dad said, actually, the one thing that really I think this opens up is the options for formation now become that much more varied, because if he can play like the 1/2, you can get more kind of attackers into the team, especially against the bottom 10 sides.
Yeah. I mean, Tim's probably watched him, I'm guessing, more than anybody. He's watches a lot of Bundesliga. But I heard somebody today describe him almost like Iniesta, Xavi, and Busquets. He can kind of do all of it. It's what the guy was saying. That's a bit much, but this guy was obviously really high on. He's a Bayern fan. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the impression I have is that, you know, he's played the 6 at Bayern, but he can play anywhere across the midfield. Yeah. So you can kind of plug him in, you know, almost whatever you want to play in the midfield, he can plug in anywhere and do the job. So, yeah, it'll be exciting. And the other thing I heard is that you had mentioned the knee injury, and he has his reputation of being injury prone, but he's played over 40 games for the last 5 years, and he missed a lot of time the first 2 years at Bayern, but that was the only period in his career where he's missed a lot of time. So we'll see.
It's amazing how he's improved since he's become a Liverpool player, actually. That's the thing that it really seems significant. So Tim, I'm going to go to you based on off the back of the Bayern comments. I don't know if you have watched him much, but what's your impression? Because I guess for you, he would have been an opposition player.
Correct. Yeah, I try not to watch Bayern play. That'd be like saying, yes, I like watching City play because they have such a great way of spending money. No, I'm not a huge fan. As I said, like I probably will be a huge fan at some point, but today I am somewhere between disappointed and nonplussed, just because I'm so tired of hearing about it. And then to like finally sign him, allegedly, still not official yet. But I'll be happy to see what happens. I'm kind of likening it to when the Philadelphia Eagles signed Michael Vick. You're like, well, that's a great player. You know, he kills dogs, but he's a great player. Not that Thiago has killed any dogs, but, you know, sorry, that was a big spoiler.
I was thinking, Tim, because I was trying to put myself in your shoes, and I was trying to think of, like, well, what player could we have signed that would have been like a, you know, probably like everybody thinks is a good player that I would have hated. And so I'm likening it to, like, if we would have somehow signed Patrice Evra, like, I probably wouldn't have been very excited about that at the time, even though he was a very good player.
I think at one stage we were in the market for Hinza, weren't we? Like, right towards the end of his tenure with United.
I don't know.
Yeah. Left back. I think Benitez was trying. Is it the left back? Benitez was trying to sign. Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's one thing I read. I did read that. I want to say it was Simon Brundish that said that this is probably the highest profile player that Liverpool has ever signed. Which I
saw
thought
that.
was interesting, and I was like, I really tried to dispel it, and I'm thinking Fernando Torres, but I'm like, this guy, and I think I just saw this on Transfer Market as well, that he's won every league bar one that he's played in as a professional.
Wow!
So in 11 years, he's won 10 leagues.
Yes, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Thank you for directing me to it, Daz.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was looking at that Simon Brundish thing as well. And it was a tweet where he was listing all of the accolades, 11 league titles.
Yeah.
In a league where his is the team where all German players will let their contracts run out and go to on a free so that team can win everything. So I wipe out all Bundesliga titles for him. 6 DFB Cups, also Bayern, so wiped off. He's won 2 Champions Leagues. That's impressive. He's won some Club World Cups, which we have to pretend is impressive since we won it last year.
Impressive.
Jesus, dude, what did you have for breakfast?
He just really doesn't like Bayern.
Did you eat an Evertonian for breakfast?
So, but Tim, you have to give him credit for his last 2 years at Barcelona, because he was a key part of that team. And they won 2 league titles, and they went to the Champions League semifinals twice.
I never have to give anyone credit for anything at Barcelona.
Okay, wow. Glad we didn't record this on a Monday morning. It could have been,
I could actually see the bitterness cloud like moving its way down from Delaware as we speak.
The way that it will be redeemed for me is if we do play the 4-2-3-1 more. It's kind of my favorite thing for our side. A lot of the 4-3-3 has just been falling flat, at least in my eyes. So if we do get to that we've played in the Community Cup Shield, whatever, and even in the friendly after that against Blackpool, I thought the squad looked good as it. If you had Thiago and Fabinho playing that kind of double pivot, I think that's amazing. And one of the other things I was talking to Charlie about during the week is I wonder if Gini sticking around and us still signing Thiago has something to do with Gini maybe trying out more of an advanced role. Because if Koeman was going to bring him to Barca, it was going to be based off his Netherlands career, where he plays a more advanced role. So I wonder if Gini went to Klopp and said, listen, this guy's going to give me a chance to play an attacking midfield role. Could I do that here? And Klopp said, yeah, because we're going to sign Thiago. So you're kind of out of that a little bit more defensive role. So that's the one thing that will interest me in seeing how this makes some of our other players or lets some of our other players play.
Well, glad we ended that on a positive note. That's good. I do agree with Simon Brundish, by the way. I was thinking about this. I do not recall Liverpool ever signing anybody that was kind of that well established. Because we've had a lot of great players, but they didn't usually arrive with the reputation that this guy has got.
And not from big clubs, really.
No.
Like you could say Virgil was on the up, but he's still coming from Southampton. So,
yeah.
You want to know what Transfer Market has his base value at, or his value at?
48.
They had him. Well, last I checked, it was 52. Well, it was $52 million.
Okay.
Now, if you put that into pounds, it's still around 40. So
Yeah,
we're getting him at basically half price, which is incredible.
Yeah.
I know that's times with COVID and all this other stuff, but you still paid you see like some of the prices that Chelsea's playing for players, like it's still kind of close to premium.
Yeah.
The Guardian did point out that Thiago cost, what was it, 40% of Ben Chilwell.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
But
Just a little bit more than we sold Solanke for.
Right.
Yeah.
So Charlie, it's your turn. What do you make of Thiago? And
Well, I'm surprised, especially given the Genie U-turn recently. And yeah, as Timmy said, and I think I'd mentioned on the last one, maybe this is an opportunity for Genie to have more of that attacking freedom that he does with the Netherlands. Although in my experience, when he's wearing a red shirt, he could not hit the broadside of a barn in most games, Barcelona and Newcastle aside, I guess. But maybe he should wear a Dutch kit beneath the new Nike kit. But the 4 years surprises me, given the situation we were in with Genie's contract impasse. Apparently that was a sticking point, is that he wanted 4. We didn't want to give him 4. 200,000 pounds a week surprises me. So he's straight to the top echelon of the wage structure, which is not something we've typically done. 29-and-a-half-year-old player, also not something we've done. But just the glut of people we have in the midfield at the moment, the non-homegrown player list, we have to get Karius or Grujic, the most likely candidates, off that to allow Thiago to be on our roster. And I mean, okay, 4-2-3-1's all well and good, but that means we're losing another midfield spot, losing one of our 3 midfield spots. So is it a 4-2-2-2, or are we pushing some of these players further forward? I've heard suggestions that Curtis Jones could possibly play as a rotational option in the front 3 or 4, or whatever the front is. Yeah. 23-man roster at this point. If we're only going with the 3 center backs, that's bigger than Klopp's roster usually. I mean, these are just all reasons why I'm surprised that it happened. Hey, it's fantastic. I think, he's a great player, I'm sure. I personally haven't seen him play a lot, but clearly he's a very phenomenal talent. But what we do with the formation, what we do with the midfield, and what we do with that glut of players in midfield will be the most interesting thing to see. How soon he gets in, people are saying, he could come in for the cup game next week. I'm like, it doesn't seem like Klopp's style. I guess it's possible. And how many games he's expected to play, given, okay, he doesn't have he doesn't have terrible injury record, but he certainly doesn't have a good injury record. And I wonder if you're keeping Fab as the number 6 anchor, you're probably likely to be putting more miles on your legs and requiring more out of him at those further forward midfield positions. So I mean, look, I'm fascinated. I thought Twitter would have been unbearable before we signed him. I'm sure it's 10 times as unbearable right now with all the conjecture back and forth, which is why I'm.
We could definitely go down a conjecture path. I suggest, in order to preserve time to talk about the Leeds game and perhaps preview the upcoming Chelsea game, perhaps we don't. I did read though that kind of one of the things that maybe under consideration is Wijnaldum has played so many minutes the last 3 years that's why they may not be willing to give him a 4-year contract, whereas Thiago, as we've spoken of, has played quite a bit of football, but certainly has not played anything like the amount of minutes that Genie has.
Well, if I can, before we move on, I think one of the reasons that you want is that we brought another midfielder in is because we rely so heavily on them. And now with this truncated season and sometimes playing 3 games a week for 4 weeks on the trot, he's going to be forced to shift his system. He's going to be forced to chop and change. And he's going to need in that particular department. He's going to have top-notch talent, and they will get a significant number of minutes regardless. So it won't be necessarily that they're quote unquote fighting for their spot.
Yeah.
They will, and we all know how minute of a detailer Klopp is. So you'll probably look in those blocks of 4, and you'll have it down to all that minute detail. So I think that in terms of who's going to get minutes and where, I think that it's going to be pretty well spread around. I'd be more worried about the front 3 than anything else, because they are going to be relied on almost exclusively, because the drop off in the front 3 is fairly significant.
Yeah. Although he's got, if he's playing different formations, he's got options not to play all of them all of the time.
Your Minamino for Bobby, potentially, yeah.
The one thing I'd kind of close with on the transfers is the fact they only made an approach on Monday makes me think that there are some other deals in the works if it was dependent on money coming in. So I think we're probably going to see some movement in the next, how many days left in the transfer window?
15 or something.
Yeah.
16
October.
Yeah. I did see something about Brewster on his way to Sheffield for 25 million.
Yeah, yeah, it's possible. Yeah. So rather than go down the Brewster rabbit hole, let's talk a little bit about Leeds. Okay, you can take your pick. You can talk about how incredibly brilliant and angry Mo Salah was to put in that performance last weekend. We can talk about the defense. We can talk about the midfield that played last weekend. And there was some very interesting data came out after the game. And I know you're not going to lead off with that, Daz, but what was your big takeaway from the Leeds game?
My big takeaway is I don't know how much longer these guys are going to allow me to spend the time on this planet, because I had to breathe fairly heavily through that. And there was definitely a lot more lub-dubs going on in my chest than I would have hoped for. But having said that, it was exhilarating. I had to step outside of myself just for a second. I was like, holy shit, this is a game of football right here. If anyone wants to start playing defense at some point, might be nice, but this is great while it's lasting.
Yep.
And I think all things tallied, I'd like to agree with some of the guys on the Anfield rep. That could easily have been 6 or 7-2. The goalkeeper made a couple of good saves. We squandered some sitters, but by and large, it was a great game of football for a neutral to watch.
Yeah. It was. The data told a slightly different story. I don't know if you want to kind of lead off with that, Sean. What was your take on the Leeds game?
I thought generally we played very well. We made a couple really bad defensive errors that led to goals. Otherwise, we completely dominated the game. I think they only had 4 shots, and we had 22. I don't know how many touches in the box, all those things. Their goals were all pretty good. I mean, they were good goals. They weren't, not like they weren't well taken. We just have to cut out the defensive mistakes. It's sort of a carryover from the lockdown. I think we've been making a lot of defensive mistakes since we've basically clinched the league. And the expected goals, I think after the match, it was something like we had like over 3, and they had something very, very small. It was like 0.27. Like 2 of ours were from penalties, but the first penalty, like Salah's shot was going in the net if the guy didn't hit it with his arm. So, I think it was one of those that the result looks worse than the performance, but a couple of really bad defensive errors will do that. So,
yeah. So it's interesting because I've heard various kind of things, but one of the complaints that I heard from a few different people was less about the defense and more about the midfield or the pressing game kind of letting them down. So for the first goal, I think it was, like Phillips got the ball off the goalie and was able to turn right around and ping this ball for 50 yards at the defense. And if the way you play a high line is to have a press, basically. And in the absence of a press, your high line can get exposed really, really easily.
Well, that was some pretty lackluster defending there, though. I will say Trent was very easily beaten on the inside, and then Joey just came across and left the wickets wide open for him. And then I have a question for I guess this is for everybody. Is anyone concerned about Allison. I just don't. For me, it just doesn't seem to have the same type of focus or drive, I guess, that he did before the break, before the lockdown. Again, I haven't looked at the data, and again, I'm the guy that sees it with the eyes, but a lot of shots that go towards him right now seem to be going in.
Yeah.
Well, since the lockdown, there's been, a number of, off performers, Gomez, Van Dijk, Allison, but honestly, I'm not concerned about any of it because as far as I'm concerned, when we restarted, it was in the bag. So it's basically been a preseason since then. Yeah, they'll get it back. It's not like they learn, certainly not Virgil or Ali going to forget how to be the best in the world. Joe Go had, a rough day. He's chasing a little bit. It seemed to be a lot of space in the midfield.
Mm-hmm.
Trent Alexander, not his best. Henderson, his first game back. Number of things we could have done better. Curtis Jones thrown on in a substitution from, our own throw in, which then immediately got to kind of where he was supposed to be. And, I think the good thing to come out of it was the resilience shown. And, at 70 minutes, I'm looking around going, we've been here before. We'll just keep doing what we've been doing and we'll get it done. And sure enough, we did.
I do share your concern, though, about Allison. I don't think he looks quite as sharp. I thought he should have got closer to that first. I think he gambled on the ball going the other way, but it felt like he should have got closer to the shot than he did.
The third one, you could say that he was screened a little bit. The guy wellied it. Given that shot 9 times out of 10, it's ending up going wide or it's hitting someone in the stomach.
Yeah, I think the XG for that was like 0.0 something. It was really like generally people don't score with 2 defenders in front of them from that position.
Yeah.
I'm
not concerned. I think it's a dip in form. He'll get it back, maybe this weekend if he can make a couple saves. I'm more concerned about Gomez, honestly. I feel like Gomez has not looked the same since the lockdown. I don't know what it is there, and I think Henderson and Trent probably weren't fit. And that might explain some of their poor play, but. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Gomez. He doesn't look the same player to me at all since the lockdown.
So I watched back the second half, actually, after having listened to one of the Anfield Rap shows where I think it was Sean Rogers.
It was the review, yeah.
Yeah, he said he thinks that sometimes Gomez ends up being at the scene of the crime, but isn't the person who caused it. That he thinks Van Dijk is doing a few different things based on how he's looking at the game. By the way, he thought Gomez had a great second half. The mistakes were all in the first half. I went back and watched it through that lens, and it was like, yeah, if I just watched the second half, I don't think I'd be at all concerned about Gomez. But Van Dijk seemed to be taking up, he wasn't helping the line to be, flat. It was kind of really higgledy-piggledy at various points.
I thought Van Dijk had one of his worst games that he's played, which is not, like he's terrible because it's Van Dijk, but he wasn't great. But I went back and watched it to watch Henderson and Trent more, and Gomez just kept sticking out to me. He was doing things that just didn't make any sense. There were a couple times where he carried the ball up the right flank, and there was no pass available. There was nobody around him, and he was kind of fortunate that he didn't get caught out. And I was just like, what is he doing? He's carrying the ball halfway up their end, and he got trapped, and I think he got out of it both times. But it was like it just didn't look right.
Yeah, so I really disagree with that because I think that's one of the ways in which they break the lines. Because Matip does it as well. They carry the ball through the midfield area.
Yeah,
to kind of create different patterns. So I don't think that's he just decided, I'm going to take the ball for a little run.
No, and I know what you mean. Matip. Usually Matip, he's doing it up the middle. I know what you mean. It just, to me, it looked like, just didn't look like he was in control. Okay. So I don't know. And I just, like the first goal, you mentioned the recovery. He kind of ran past. I thought he misplayed when he came back to recover, but he also I think was out of position when the play started. He sort of hesitated to make a press, and that's when the ball went over top. And then he went to recover, and it seemed to me like he should have been playing the player from the inside to the out, and he just kind of ran right past him. So
Sean, I conceded that the first half wasn't very good. So so Tim, final thoughts on the Leeds game? You might want to mention Mo, just saying.
Oh, yes. Mo scored 2 Bruno Fernandes shots. I thought Mo did look great, did look like he was it you, Paul, that said he was a little pissed off to not be even considered for the Premier League kind of team of the season. If that's what it takes, then I hope we snub Mo on weekly accolades every week this year, because having a focused Mo, and I believe I read also something in the stats where they weren't double covering him like a lot of teams have.
Yeah.
So they were leaving Mo open to like either double cover Sadio or to just focus on their press. So it was basically Mo as we would have seen him before everyone in the Premier League realized how good Mo was. So I'm in to see that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of the other stuff that I observed, I think we've kind of already hit on. One of the observations that I had was Helder Costa was running rampant on the left wing for them. He was the one taking advantage of Trent. And I think I mentioned to Sean, it reminded me of Tariq Lamptey when we played Brighton a month or two ago, who made Robbo just kind of like run all day long.
Yeah.
And so I think between exploiting the wings and also that high line, which can go all the way back to, those Atletico Champions League games, I think in a way we've been found out, and that's part of why a change in form makes me a little bit more excited. And I think that could be also account for how Joe has looked a little bit off of his game, because I really like that caught at the scene of the crime comparison, because it is just kind of like he happens to be catching up because of the way the team plays, because when we're pressing forward, it's really a back two with Fabinho and Virgil there, because usually that right center back is advancing the ball a little bit more. So I think it was an unfortunate look. I think it was an exciting game to watch. Guinness helped. I hope we don't have, an entire season full of those games. I'd like some dominating defeats a la Manchester City, but it was a good game. 1-0. We may not be top of the table at this point, but I think things still look okay for us.
Very 17-18 performance there. The heavy metal Toro.
Yeah.
Which
doesn't matter what you score, we'll score more, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I just like real quick. Their marking on the goal that Virgil scored was horrendous. I've never seen him mark that bad in my life. And the goal that Salah scored, not from the penalty spot, was amazing. And it was I didn't think it was talked about enough.
Yeah.
He absolutely thumped it.
Yeah.
Apparently, because I was listening to another show this morning, you can hear Henderson shout "finish" just before he hits it. Just kind of.
I will say that Mo goal introduced my wife to the term "filthy." And now she knows what it means, because that was a filthy goal. That was just like, oh.
Yeah. I think it happened so quick, and there were no fans. I think that's maybe why. But man, that was awesome when you watch it back. Yeah.
Also, one last thought. I think that the club should put a little plaque down on the ground, right over here, actually right behind you, where Sadio Mane finished the career of Leeds as captain. So he stopped him, went around him, megged him, went past him again, and then passed the ball. I was like, dude, that guy's got a family. How can he look his kids in the face after what you just did to him? Like, his career just ended right there. They need to memorialize that for that poor guy.
We did look great going forward.
Yeah, that was definitely one of those where you're a defender and it's like, I've got him. What? But where the hell did he go?
Like, you see him just drop his head like, oh, Christ.
Yeah. Okay, we're rapidly running out of time, and I do want to touch on so we'll combine the two things. You can either go with the kind of your visions around Chelsea, what you kind of expect from that game, or anything else that Liverpool related this week. that's I guess not Thiago related, because I think we did that to death. We'll go with you first, Daz.
I expect it to be a much tighter game. I think Klopp is going to close up ranks. It's away from home. It's against Chelsea. He knows that they now, although somewhat disjointed, they do pose a fairly substantial offensive threat with the kids that they just brought in and what they had before anyway. I think that we'll do them on the counter because they've spent all this money on the forward-facing guns like the Maginot Line, but once they turn them around, they're still surprisingly suspect in the back. And I'd have to say that Brighton actually looked better because I did watch the game just to see what we were up against. I wanted to see how Werner did, how who's the other kid, Havertz did. Yeah. And they didn't impress as much as I thought they would, but they're playing for a new team, new system, new coach. So I fully expect their team to be good moving forward, especially if they can bolster up the defense. But I think that we'll do them 2-1. I think that they'll still get in, but I think we'll beat them 2-1 on 2 counterattack goals.
I like the sound of that. Sean, what are you thinking about Sunday? I
was very similar. I'm hoping they start Thiago Silva so that Mane can get a run at him at the midfield line. I don't. A lot of their business. I don't really understand. I don't really understand what the strategy is. Because to me, like Werner does a lot of what Pulisic does. Ziyech and Havertz are very similar players. Thiago Silva is not a player you want to play on a high line right now at his age. And it's going to be interesting to see how that all works out. But I'm interested, I think it'll be exciting and we'll hit him on the counter.
Be interesting. Charlie, your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to go away from the Chelsea game. Apparently, the goal, Mo Salah has 35 games that he has scored in, we have won. So the goal-scoring winning run has now just eclipsed Wayne Rooney's 34 for the record, Premier League record. 35 games in which he's scored, we have won. Which begs the question, why doesn't he just score in all of the games?
Selfish bastard.
Yeah.
Simple. Come on, Mo, pick it up, buddy.
So many things to say. One season wonder. But he's on target for 114 goals. We have to remember that. So the Alpha Rep keeps joking. I don't know if you guys even know who Dixie Dean is. I know Daz will. He holds the record for a number of goals in the English season. He played for Everton. The record's something like 60. They were kind of joking that Mo will get his statue put alongside Dixie Dean's statue, which is currently outside Goodison Park when he breaks his record.
Yeah. Hope someone does that.
Yes. So Tim, take it wherever you want.
Man, I don't know where to go. I feel like we've stepped off of Chelsea. I'm kind of hopeful not to take it back into the gutter, but as silly as it is to start reading SAR things and how we weren't going to spend any money and now we've allegedly spent on Thiago, to think that we would also spend on Ismaila Sarr. But I kind of still want to see that transfer done, whether it happens now, whether it happens in the winter, whether it happens next year. I watched a video someone had posted to Twitter, and it was in the kind of hallways of Anfield after we played Watford. And it was Sadio Mane talking to Troy Deeney, and Sarr is standing right there. And he's like, "You take care of my boy. Once he learns English, he'll be ready to go." And then it looked like they were going back to give him a tour of the locker room or something like that. So I feel like it's got to happen. Like that Mane connection is great. Okay. I'd be happy to see him here. Yeah, that'd be a transfer I could get in on.
I think that James Pearce, who's usually very cautious about what he says because I'm sure of what he knows, did say something like he could see Sarr being a good acquisition.
Yeah.
So it sounded to me like, oh, that might have something in it.
I was talking to somebody earlier today, real quick, about if we sold Shaq and Grujic, we'd probably make enough money back to buy somebody like a Sarr. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're going to pay $40 million for him, but if we get him down to like 30, we could.
Yeah. I think that's what they were talking about was 30 to 36 with add-ons.
Yeah.
And the threat of AFCON could be even more frightening to a Liverpool.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, then we'll get to Mbappe, right?
Yeah, we can, but get somebody next year.
I'm going to close it with one just kind of little anecdote. There were a bunch of people apparently today tracking Thiago in Liverpool. And they were showing photos from the airport and all sorts of places. And apparently about, I don't know, an hour ago, Paul Joyce, the Times journalist, kind of pointed out that he's still in Munich.
He's still in Germany. I heard that too.
Yeah.
Getting his medical,
Yeah. So on that note, Daz, thank you so much for joining us, especially at such short notice. Thanks
having me.
everybody
You
else.
guys was pull. I fully expected you to have Thiago on here instead of me.
Oh man, yeah.
Well, we're still hoping for the Jurgen Klopp Zoom video. So.
We got Simon Hughes on, so we should be able to get James Pierce sometime, right?
We were waiting for Thiago at John Lennon Airport, and he never.
I never showed.
That's great. Great note to end. Thanks, everyone.